Hello everyone, this is Lloyd Williams and this is the Recovery Dharma Online Facilitator Training video. What I'd like to do here in the next few moments is just take you through the setup that I use and I've used to train a number of hosts and facilitators over the last year. It's not required that you do the same thing. This is just my best practice and hopefully you can take something away from this that you can use for your own. The setup I'm using right now is a laptop and a second monitor. So on the second monitor, we have what you see right now, the Zoom platform here opened, and we have the template that I use that you'll get access to and you can use if you'd like to help me manage the meeting and better facilitate. On the computer screen below, I have three windows open. This comes from the one is the script itself, and we'll scroll up here what it looks like at the top. That's what the script looks like. The other is a copy of the Recovery Dharma online, Recovery Dharma book from the PDF, and I have it open to the paragraph we're going to read. And then the third one is another copy of the book, this RD book 2, and it's open to the meditation, whatever meditation we're going to do for the day. Now, these three lay tiered like this, so I can just click between them as I need to get them to open up. See, and by tiering this way, some corner, top or bottom, is always available to be clicked on. So these sit there. We'll talk more about them in just a moment and how they work and how we use them and everything else. And for right now, we'll just set them back down here and get them out of the way. And we'll go through this process here. Now, so that's the setup. I'll show you another view of it in just a moment so you can see it again. But it's basically my laptop here and the Zoom platform up here. I like to keep the Zoom platform where the camera is, and I have a Logitech camera on the top of the monitor here. So this is the better microphone, better camera. So that allows me to get, as I'm looking at them in the gallery view, they're seeing me look up. When I occasionally have to read something, I try to keep my head up and just put my eyes down and do my reading down there. But more often than not, for the meeting, I'm looking this way. Now, when you log in for the first time into your new meeting, you'll see a button over here that'll say Claim Host. You'll click on that button and a pop-up window will pop up here in the center and it'll ask for the host code. Now, we don't show you that or give you that code here because it's only for facilitators. But once you become a facilitator and finish your training, you'll be given access to that 6-digit code. At which point you'll type in those 6 digits, push Claim Host, and then you'll have control over the meeting. The host control gives you the ability to mute and unmute people. It gives you the ability to rename everybody. It gives you the ability to stop their video. You have the ability to, if somebody is being a troll or being unwise in their action or speech, after you've warned them, to remove them from the room if necessary. The first things you do after you've claimed the host is I go over here and click on this More button, which will now pop up here, and I mute all participants. This is typically unmuted or unchecked in many cases, but click on Mute Participants. This window will come up and you say allow all participants to unmute themselves, but yes, you want to mute them. So when they come in, they'll be muted. That way, if they have background noise or they're in a noisy environment and we're in the middle of a conversation, somebody pops in late, that doesn't disrupt everybody and think, well, where's that noise coming from? They come in muted and they've got to physically unmute themselves to be able to say something. You allow participants to unmute themselves here. We allow them to rename themselves if they'd like to. I also turn off the play, enter, and exit chime. It's okay early on before the meeting starts, but once the meeting starts, people are still coming in late as they're waking up or slept in late or whatever. And as that happens, it goes bing, 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 and it can be very distracting. So I turn that off up ahead of time. Locking the meeting, we don't lock the meeting because that eliminates people from coming in. And we don't enable the waiting room because that puts them in a holding pattern. I just let them come in as they come in. I normally log in about 15 to 30 minutes ahead of the meeting to sort of set things up and just sort of chit-chat with anybody that comes in. And so all this is being done typically before anybody shows up, unless somebody just happens to be hanging around there. So after I push the more button and claim the host and set the mute on entry, I then come down here to this share screen, click on this little green arrow right here to the right of the big green arrow, and click on that, and this menu comes up, and I go to advanced sharing options, and I make sure that only host is clicked here. What that means is only I, as the host, can share the screen, because we've had people in the past that have just by accident thought that that was the share button. So when they got ready to share, they pushed this here, and they took over the meeting, and basically started their computer started sharing their screen. And sometimes there's things on people's screens that may embarrass them that they're sharing, or maybe embarrassing to other people. So you don't want that. And some people just by accident hit this when they're trying to hit the chat button or something else, and it ends up in people, again, share things that could be embarrassing or just be distracting to everybody else. So by limiting to just the host, then you control it. Now, if you're using breakout rooms and if you're using multiple hosts, we have meetings that have 3 hosts. One reads the script, one does the meditation, another one does the screen shares. And when you have that, whoever's going to be doing the sharing the screen needs to claim the host or be the host. You can also you can change host from yourself to somebody else by moving and making that person host. But whoever is going to share the screens needs to be the host. And so they can have the ability to share their screen. There's talk that Zoom's going to allow any of the co-hosts to also share screens, and if that comes about, then it won't be a problem anymore. But until then, only the host need to set up so only host can share. After those 2 things are done, the only other thing that's left to do is to set up the template. Now, I tend to set up the whole meeting up the night before. My meetings are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings at 7 a.m. I don't want to be waking up at 6:30 and trying to set up all this stuff here and still kind of foggy in the morning. So before I go to bed at night, I just sort of set the whole computer up. All the windows down here on my laptop are laid out. The Zoom platform is ready to load up. And this template over here is on the side, is already here. And I've already decided what the meditation will be for today and what the reading will be. Those are the only 2 things I really need to set up on this template. Everything else is going to be filled out during the meeting. We alternate on the Monday, Wednesday, Friday group. We've always alternated between a breath meditation and a heart meditation. Other groups do outside meditation, so you just need to pick whatever meditation you want to use. You may want to put the link to the Tara Brach meditation here, so you can just click on it and it plays, or you may just want to put on there what meditation you're going to be reading for the day. The book study, because we read one small paragraph in the book over the first year we've done it, we went through the entire book, 1 paragraph at a time. It's not a book study. It just re-engages back into the book after the meditation. I find sometimes the meditation can be a challenge for some people. And it's nice to sort of reground back into the teachings and sort of get them out of their head and wherever they went during the meditation, bring them back down before we start the shares. So between the meditation and the sharing time, we just do another quick reading of a 1 paragraph, and once somebody in the group reads that. So before the meeting starts, I want to try to identify somebody to read the practice, somebody to identify the 4 Noble Truths, somebody to read the Eightfold Path, somebody to do the after meditation reading, a timekeeper, and somebody to do dedication and merit. So those 6 people are going to be identified early on. Now, I announce at every meeting that if you'd like to do readings or like to read or share or participate, please come in a couple of minutes early, because about 2 to 3 minutes before the meeting starts, I just ask around who would like to do some readings, and we basically set those assignments up so everybody can participate. So anybody that wants to is more than happy to do a reading. It's a nice way to enter into the facilitation process and learn how to participate in the meeting. Now, so with the template over here on the side, and already having the meditation and the reading assigned, and you've now got host power, you've got your control of the meeting, and you're here waiting for everybody. I believe our primary purpose as a host is not just to read the script and run and do all the screen share. That's the mechanics of it. Our real purpose is to create and maintain a safe place, a safe space for people who are broken to share their vulnerability with other people who are broken. And that's really what we're doing here, is helping to maintain and create that space. So that means being inviting. So when people come in, say hello, talk to them. They may be anonymous and they may share. That's fine. Just say, "Hello, John. Welcome to the sitting meeting here this morning. We'll be starting in another 10 minutes. You're welcome to unmute and speak when you'd like to, but you're also welcome to remain anonymous. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them before the meeting or at the end of the meeting in the virtual parking lot." And I say something like that, and it's sort of they don't have to talk, they don't have to open, they don't have to share their screen. They can stay anonymous, but they feel welcomed and sort of they've been acknowledged that they're here. And sometimes that's enough to sort of draw them out. They'll pop on their video and they'll start talking to you. And they've now come from somewhere else and it's their first time here. And they engage with you. And now that you find that they actually want to take a reading and all of a sudden then they're sharing and they're now part of the group. And they did it all because you spent a few minutes at the front of the meeting when it was just the two of you talking and they felt kind of welcomed and comfortable. And I've seen it happen over and over and over again throughout the meetings. So now that it's time to start the meeting, you've got your script down here in your other reading, and I'll pull it up here so we can see. At this stage here, you want to sort of make sure you picked up your volunteers, and here's some introductory technicalities you may read before you actually start and ring the bell. They just talk about why you're going to mute everybody, and the mute button is over here on the right-hand side underneath the participants menu. And I just tell everybody I'm going to mute the lines to keep any background noise down while we go through the readings. You're always welcome to unmute yourself when it's your turn to read or your turn to share. And that way they're going to be muted when they come in. I've muted everybody that's now here, so if there was any chit chat that was going on beforehand, that now all stops and we can just participate in the meeting itself. At this point here, I now scroll up, again off screen. This is all down here on my laptop down here, but I'm scrolling up basically to get ready to meet. At that point, I will then take and ring a bell, and I use the Insight Timer app. If you have an actual physical bell, great. I just happen to love the sound of this bell from the Insight Timer, and it's convenient. I always have it with me. I don't have to worry about trying to find where the bell is. And I just ring a bell. And we're now ready to start our meeting. At which time, I'll just continue to read. Welcome to this meeting of Recovery Dharma Online Sitting Group. We're gathered to explore and just go through the reading itself. Now, as you read the script, a couple things to note. These breaks here, I've always, because when I was taught by Vince, I've always paused here for a breath or two. Just take a breath and then read the next paragraph. It does a couple things. It calms you as the host down and facilitator if you've gotten kind of anxious and everything else. It sort of calms you down, and it calms everybody else down. And it gives a break to sort of focus on what this statement was and what this statement was, what the next thing. So each of the statements become their own little meditation in their own right. I then introduced myself as facilitator. I'm not a Buddhist teacher. I have no particular authority in this meeting. I'm a member of this community and have volunteered to help lead our meeting and discussion today. Then we go to introductions. We've always allowed everybody to introduce themselves for the meeting, no matter how long it took. And typically we have 30, 40 people in the room, and it doesn't take long. Most of the older people will actually introduce themselves through the chat. And a lot of the newer people introduce themselves live. And then after all the live people have introduced themselves, I just go through and read and say, Bill from X says hi, and Tom from and Sally from such and such says hi. And just go through them real quickly. And it takes just a few seconds to read all of them that are over here. And now we've got everybody introduced, and everybody is connected and had a chance to wave and connect to everybody. At that point there, we then go into the readings themselves. Now, the readings have already been assigned over here earlier in the script over here. So in the template, I've got who's going to be reading the practice. So I very quickly scroll up, get the practice on screen. We do the short press, so I roll it up here so we can see the renunciation. And I'm going to move this down so we can show it to you live how it works. At this point, I'm going to say we'll now move to some readings about the practice. And Bill has offered to read us the practice, at which time I'm going to share the screen. Now, you share the screen by clicking on this green button down here at the bottom of the screen. When you click on that, this window comes up. Now, the reason why those screens were set up, the three windows were set up the way they were, is so I could see which one. Here I can see very quickly, this is the basic meditation page. And what you're seeing here is, this is the main, my monitor where the camera's on, but this is my laptop. So these are the three screens set side by side. This top one is the one I want to share, which is this one over here. So you can basically look over here on this one screen here, see the top screen you've got that you want to share, and find the one that looks just like it. And that's the easiest way to do it. Or keep them at some point where there's something distinctive. The reading almost always looks like a big paragraph of text. The meditation, normally there's some name of the meditation that will be sitting here at the top in big bold print. It makes it easy to see those two. And the script is almost always here. You can also tell by the name, this is script, this is book, this is book 2. Book 2 is always my meditation, book 1 is always the reading. These other windows are windows that are part of the Zoom platform, and this is my actual template. So again, the easiest way to find it is if you've got the page you want to share as your top page on your monitor, it'll be the page that looks the same over here. So at that point, I'm now going to click on this window here because that's what I want to share. I don't want to share the whole desktop. I just want to share this single screen. Because if you share the whole desktop, it'll show everything, all your logos, other programs, and everything else. And there's no need to do that. It'll share all this stuff up here that you see on top up here, which I don't mind you guys seeing, but somebody else may have stuff there they don't want people to see. So by just sharing the window, you share only the window of the app you're trying to use. So when we click on share, it now will bring, you're now seeing the screen, that single screen on your computer. By the way, if you click escape as a participant, you would be able to go back to the screen. Now right now you're seeing nothing but this screen here, and what the viewers are seeing is this screen right here, with a small view that looks like this of the 3 or 4 or 5 people, top people, and that's what they're seeing right now on the screen when it's shared. And those of you who've been in meetings, you've seen how it looks by the time you get to being a facilitator, you've already sat in the meeting, so you know what a screen share looks like already anyway. Now, at that point there, the reading would go on, and what I do is they read through. Since I'm using a smaller laptop, everything's not on the screen. So as they come down here to one of these paragraph breaks, I will gently slide the screen up very slowly so they can keep their eye on the next paragraph and keep reading if they want to, and just scroll it up. I don't like to, I could also minimize it if I wanted to and get it all on one page, but it makes it smaller, and it's too small if you're on a laptop, on an iPhone, or if you're on an iPad or some kind of tablet device, it may be too small. So I'd rather keep it bigger print so they can see it and everybody else can see it clearly, and then just scroll it up for them as they read. So as the first person reads the practice, we go through this. Then I go up here and says, now Sally has offered to read us the 4 Noble Truths, and I scroll it up, and then you notice that these pages, each page is on a separate page. This is actually the script that Jerry uses, and it's a script that I share with everybody I train with, because it's already been page breaks. You may, some people actually take these pages out here, pull the text out of here, put it into PowerPoint presentations. And then each script is on its own separate screen, and it looks very good. Sean does that. I think Jerome does that. A number of other hosts have done that, and it's great. To me, I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible with the least amount of workload, extra effort to have to go through to set everything up. So I just never did that. But you're welcome to do that if you want to. So we go through the three readings here, these first 3 readings over here. We get to the wise concentration. Now we're back ready so I unshare the screen at that point. And now let me move this back down where it belongs to be. They now are back. We now have the gallery view. We're now seeing everybody like you're seeing me now. We'd have all the window with everybody here. And at that point, we then turn around and we'll now be doing a guided meditation on whatever you put over here. Awareness of breath, compassion, loving kindness, awareness of sound, whatever meditation you're doing. Now, in the Monday, Wednesday, Friday group, we've tended to stay very generic. This is the sort of the 7 a.m. group is the group that basically is just doing the generic RDO script. Most everybody else is doing something different. They bring in Tara Brach meditations, other meditations. They're doing book studies. They're doing speaker meetings, everything. We're just doing the generic, and that's fine. Everybody's got the diversity is what makes it great. Anybody can find what they feel comfortable with and associate with that group and find their family there. We just felt that it was important to maintain some group that had just the generic script for those who just wanted the same stuff on a regular basis. So when it comes time for meditation, I'm just going to be reading straight out of the book through the preamble and then go into the whatever meditation it is in the book. In this case here, the awareness of breath. At which time we just go through and read the preamble. And then when it comes time to start the meditation, I then take and ring the bell. It'll say we're going to ring the bell once or twice or 3 times, whatever times you're going to do to start the meditation. We'll end the meditation with the same thing. At that point, you can either hide, unshare your video, stop your video, so they don't see you moving around distracted as you're doing the readings and everything else and doing all the stuff you need to do. And that's what I normally do, is just to keep my physical movement and doing the reading and everything else away from them. Some people will close their video during the meditation, some don't. But at that point there, I'm going to then ring the bell, and then we'll begin the meditation. Sit in a comfortable but attentive posture, allowing your back to be straight. Again, the same thing with the reading before. The meditation has pause in here, and between these breaks, I tend to take a breath. But they also have pauses, which are longer, and they also have some of the longer meditations, like the compassion and forgiveness meditations. You have these longer pauses of where it says here, up 3 minutes of silence. Now, let's talk about the timing. When you start at the top of the hour with a new meeting, you basically got about a half an hour to go through all your intro stuff and your meditation, and then you've got about a half an hour to do your sharings and your closing. So it's about a 50-50 break. That's for a sitting meeting. Book study meetings, they tend to may do shorter meditations, a longer book reading, and lesser shares or more shares. Something like the codependency meeting does a very, very, very short front end with very short meditation and a long sharing period. A speaker meeting may have a full half hour of regular sharing and meditation, and then go for an hour for another 45 minutes or so with speaking and everything else. Each meeting does it differently. We've tended to break the sitting meeting up into a 50-50 ratio. About 50% of all the front end stuff with the readings and meditation, and then 50% with the sharing and the closing itself. So as we go through this meetings, to make that work, on these pauses here, you tend to need to count up how many pauses you've got so that you can go through and time the actual meditation. Now, on these breath meditations, it's not really a problem. You can, on the awareness of breath meditation, you've got only 1, 2, 3 pauses before you go to the closing. So these can be 2, 3, 4 minute long pauses to fill up all the time. And the way the breath meditations work is this initial meditation here, the one called the basic meditation, starts here and goes all the way down as a sensation of breath, a couple of pauses, to this little icon here. At this point here, for the breath meditation, you just go straight into the closing. But if this is a awareness of sound or awareness of feeling tone or awareness of body sensation meditation, at this point, you're going to still read the same introduction. You're going to go through this whole first part of the meditation, and you're going to come down to this little icon, but instead of going to the closing, you're going to jump down here to the awareness of sound and read this portion these two paragraphs with a breath between them. And then after you've done whatever length of time you have left in your meditation time, then you come back up here to this initial logo icon and read these last two paragraphs of your closing. So this is done for all of the breath meditations. They have an introduction, a closing, and then if it's not the breath meditation itself, they have an additional reading that goes in the middle. So introduction, the meditation itself, and then the closing is the order in the breath meditations. Now, when you come down to the heart meditations, which start with loving kindness, forgiveness, equanimity, all these meditations that are further down in the book here, they have their own introduction, and you don't have to skip around. It just reads through in order all the way through to the end. Now, you've got a number of pauses here. I tend to pause for about a minute on these pauses here. And then as you get into the actual where you're now directing your focus, your loving kindness, compassion, equanimity to others, you normally start off with yourself. You then go to a neutral person or somebody who's benefited you. Then you go to a neutral person. Then you go to somebody who's difficult. And then you come back to the world or yourself at the end. And most of the meditations follow that same order. You do it for yourself. You do it for another person you care about. You do it for a neutral person, a difficult person, and then yourself or the world in the end. I found that you can't do the 2 to 3 minutes for each of these. If you do 3, 3, 3, 3 for all those, you're going to be running way into your sharing time. And I think it's important. So I found that if I start off with a full couple of minutes on the person, yourself, and then a minute and a half on the neutral person, and then a minute or less on the difficult person, then I can use whatever's left over. But I find that by reducing the time down to and make the difficult person the shortest amount of time, that it has the least opportunity of triggering somebody. That's the most difficult person to deal with. Many people don't follow the instructions which say don't pick the most difficult person in your life, and they do. They pick the person they just broke up with, or they're the person that created their trauma in their life, and that's who they focus on, and it triggers them. So to keep them in that triggering state for a minute or 2 or 3 minutes can be very, very, very damaging. And I think that it's just better for us to give them a shorter period of time there so they can go it. And the reality is most people have never noticed that that's what I've been doing. I just went through a training with 9 people. They're taking over the 3 meetings I do, and none of them had actually noticed that. And that was, and they thought that it was the same amount of time for the difficult person as it was for themselves. And normally it's about 1/4 to 20% of the same time. That's how powerful that difficult person can be. It feels like you're there with them for a lot longer than you really are. So that's just a recommendation. It's not a rule or requirement. It's just what worked for me, and I think has created an easier, safer environment for people to do that. So by going from the easy person, yourself, in some cases, to down to that more difficult person, and just reducing the time period, and then using the last time to sort of time everything out. And I just count up ahead of time how many of these pauses I've got to fill in. I then know that I've got 15, 20 minutes to fill in everything in. It takes 30 seconds or so to do the readings between each one, 10 to 15, 30 seconds. So the math figures out that you've got 2 minutes, 1.5 minute, 1 minute, half a minute, and then back to whatever, another minute or 2 for your close. At the end of all these heart meditations, there is an actual closing that actually gives you the actual closing. Now let's go to all thoughts of others, return our focus to our body, and then gently return our attention back to the space around you. At that point, if I've closed my video off, I then turn my video back on and ring the bell, and we go into the sharing portion of our meeting. Now, as we said, after the meditation, we're going to go from there. We actually do, let's see, let me get back to my, so we ended the meditation here. here we are. So at this point here, we're going to pull this. We're not a book study meeting, but we are going to take and read one simple paragraph from the book. I just find it to be a nice way to ground us back into the whatever was going on in our head during the meditation, good or bad. Let's ground back into some real truth, our dharma that we believe, that we hold to as being true. So we go over here, and the reading was assigned that paragraph. We would then pop that paragraph up on the screen as a share, and the person would read that paragraph. And we just go paragraph by paragraph through the book. And I note here in this side over here the first 2 or 3 words and the last 2 or 3 words with a dot, dot, dot between them in these quotes. That lets me know for the next week when I have to do it again, where I've got to find myself that I need to move to the next page over here that we ended up here on this one here. And that's why that's there. Now, at this point, we're now moving, after the reading, we go straight into the group sharing. And at this point, we've already identified a timekeeper, and I just go through and read this. Please limit your share to 2 to 3 minutes, and the timekeeper will warn you when you have 1 minute left. Please say thank you and acknowledge and all that. This paragraph here and this paragraph here, you really need to slow down and stress, because it sets the ground rules of what sharing is all about. Sharing is not just here to sit here and talk about the weather or what you read lately. It's really specific. I mean, we have a very specific mandate that comes from the book itself. Please be wise in your speech, trying to use I statements and focusing your share on your own experience of addiction, recovery, Buddhist principles and practice, as well as the readings or meditations today. That's the focus of our thing. And the more we get outside of I talk and it starts becoming you talk, people start going into teaching and trying to educate everybody and trying to help people. And we're not there. The sharing is really about yourself and trying to identify where you are in your own path of recovery and how that walk is going. That's really what we're trying to do here. And by slowing down and really stressing that to everybody, it makes sense. The script is well written. This comes straight out of the book, Trauma Sensitive Mindfulness, which if you haven't read, I recommend highly. I think as facilitators, it should be required reading. It's a powerful book. It's the heart and soul of all of the Recovery Dharma book. Most of the literature committee pulled complete paragraphs out of that original text and put them in here. This paragraph right here is basically from the book. This whole crosstalk thing and the sharing our opinion and advice and all that stuff there, and how we do wise speech is really part of the process here. Now, and that book is Trauma Sensitive Mindfulness, if you'd like to read that. At that point, we then go down, let me finish it here. We then go to the sharing portion where we've asked them to raise their hand, and the raise hand is a couple of items. You can raise hand you can't see it here because I'm on host mode, but in here will be underneath the participants menu, and it says in the script, very, very clearly, it says, go to the, if you'd like to raise your hand, it's found opening the participants menu, this one here, this one down here, participants, and looking at the raise hand button at the bottom. If you're a call-in dialer, use *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourself. So the instructions are very clear, they're very easy to say, and those are important to read if you're going to use it. Now, in our meeting, I've always done it where we both allow raising hands and we just go through the roster. So the people here are listed on the gallery view or they're sitting over here in the participants menu. If they raise hands, they automatically pop to the top of the list. So what you have up here is you'll have yourself as host, you'll have all your co-hosts will be right underneath you, and then underneath that will be anybody that raises their hands, they will pop up here into this group, up here, this top group. So no matter where they are in the gallery, you may not see them. They may be on another page you can't even see, but they'll pop up here in the participants. So look here first to see who's raising hands, because it's sometimes hard to see the hand raised in the gallery view, particularly when there's a lot of people there. That's why having a co-host here can help you identify when people are maybe put in the chat, I can't find the raise hand button, but I'd like to speak, and that kind of stuff's important. If there's nobody raises their hand, some people just say, is there anybody like to share? Unmute yourself. I find that takes a lot of time to go through that process, and the one thing we found is that people didn't come here because they just wanted to be observers. They're really looking to try to find some place to connect with. That's what we all are doing, trying to find community. And as Tom Finley said, that the why 12-step and recovery groups work is because broken people are vulnerable enough to open up and share their vulnerability in the presence of other broken people who are vulnerable enough to share their brokenness. And that's why this group feels closer than you do in some cases than you do to your own family or friends, because you're around people who are broken and acknowledge their brokenness rather than your friends and all who are broken too, but just don't want to acknowledge it. So we've always told everybody that we're going if nobody raises their hand, then I'm just going to go down the list and ask you if you'd like to share. You're just going to be asked. If you would like to share, you can unmute and share. If you don't want to share, you can say pass. Or if you don't even want to unmute or share anything, just stay quiet. And if you stay silent, I'll just move on to the next person. There's no pressure to share or be willing to share anything. And I've also found to take any pressure off people, I go ahead and say, Bill, would you like to share? And then Sally, you'll be on deck. And when Sally's turn comes up, I say, Sally, would you like to share? Now, Tom, you're on deck. And I alternate back and forth from genders, and I try to alternate between older members of the group and newer members. I like to always start off with somebody who's been a part of the group for a while that knows what sharing is all about. It's difficult for somebody brand new to understand what a share is, and it's nice for them to hear a couple of shares. So I start off with normally a couple people that I know will stay on topic and use wise speech and can sort of set the stage for it. Also, if somebody's had a really difficult share, some people just typically are upbeat and their shares tend to be very positive. So if somebody's had a really, really strong, tough share and the mood has sort of come down in the group, I'll tend to look over and find somebody that's a great person that's always sort of upbeat and I can see that they're excited and happy and smiling today. So I'll have them share and ask them to share, and it sort of brings the level of energy back up again, because if you go from bad, the whole everybody's mood goes down. Not that we don't need to have that, but it's sort of nice to alternate between it. Sort of go up and down, rather than just continuing to plummet down in one direction. Remember, we're all vulnerable here. I mean, we're all broken people and got problems. So trying to keep from triggering anybody is part of that, keeping a safe environment. So as we go through the shares, I just write the people's names over here in the template so I know that they've shared, so I don't call on them twice. Anybody I know I see somebody says I'm just listening, or they sent me a private message set up, not sharing today, I just go ahead and put their name in here and say, listening or pass. And it's there. That way I know they've already been called on or they've already responded, so that I don't embarrass them by calling on them, having them have to either say something or just stay silent and that thing. So as we get to the top of the, we normally, in our case, we try to stop the meditation. I try to time the meditation to stop at about 25 to 27 minutes after the hour, giving us a couple of minutes to do the reading and a couple of minutes to prep up the sharing, the reading part of the sharing for everything. Now, if you're going to go into breakout rooms, the breakout room option is not showing in my option here. I just realized that, because I'm on a personal thing and there's nobody else here with me. Okay. The breakout rooms, basically there's a button down here that pops up that shows breakout room. And when you click on the breakout room, if you've got, first of all, I wouldn't suggest doing it unless you have a really, really large group. And you've got a number of experienced co-hosts that you can set in the rooms. That's important. You need to have some co-hosts that understand that they're going to be put into a room and to host. So as I ask for co-hosts over here, I'm asking people first, are you willing to be a co-host? We're going to do breakout rooms today. Or are you willing to be a host? We're not doing breakout rooms. I just need you to monitor the the mute and the chat window and help me understand and see things I don't see myself. There's a big difference in being a co-host of a non-breakout room and being a co-host in a breakout room. And it can be triggering and for somebody to do the latter if they're stuck in a room with people they don't know and a bunch of new people that are not really willing to share. It can be sort of challenging. So either don't do the breakout rooms if you don't have some experienced co-host with you, and just keep everybody in the same room. And it's okay that everybody doesn't get a chance to share, though they have an opportunity. If anybody wants to share, can raise their hand before the end of the hour, so they have plenty of opportunity for everybody that wants to share. And anybody that you call on. And one reason why I do the call on is I've heard for the last year, almost everybody I've ever asked to, they've come and said, you know, I wasn't planning on sharing today, but I really need to. And thank you for asking me. And it's sort of like they were just looking for a prompt. And they were right here at the edge of making the step and stepping in, but just couldn't do it. And just by being asked, they said, yeah, I need to share. I really do. And thank you. And that's important. And if they don't want to share and they don't feel like it, they have the total ability to maintain their anonymity and just be quiet and just, we'll pass. There's no pressure to it. But it does open up those who want to. And we're trying to encourage people to allow them to take that time to share and to participate in the process. And I think that's important for them. Now, in the breakout rooms, and we'll have to do a separate video, I guess, if we need to do that. We have found out that most people have not liked the breakout room. Most people don't. And most people have referred to. Most of the groups have stopped doing the breakout rooms. Even my own group, the new hosts are probably not going to be doing the breakout rooms because they can be difficult spaces to maintain, and it is a lot more management of the actual screens itself. So if there's a need for that, we can do another separate breakout room video, and we'll look at something like that. But there is a guide that Jer created for the breakout rooms that has the video screenshots in it, and that's probably the best place for you to go because it goes step by step through every screen, everything you need to do, how you need to do it to celebrate. And it is a fairly complicated process, and you should practice it on the Zoom with 2 or 3 other friends on the Zoom when nobody else is on there to do it before you try to do it live. My first time live, it was scary, and it took time for me to figure it out, and I realized later I needed to prep all that up beforehand and make it a lot easier. So Jerry did a great job putting this breakout guide together for everybody, and that's available, so I recommend downloading that and looking at it if you want to do breakout rooms. So at this point here, we're going to go through the sharing process. We just go down the list, and I sort of alternate back and forth between people at the top of the list that are on video and people at the bottom of the list that are not on video, and just ask. If we've got a lot of people in the room, and I try to take and call on those who haven't shared recently versus those who sort of share all the time, and let some of the others have a chance. I also plug in anybody that has a raised hand as soon as possible because their share may be very timely or very top of mind. Now, at the end of the sharing, we come to the point where we now close the meeting out. It looks like this on the script, and it basically says this is all the time we have for sharing. Thank you so much for those who shared, and especially all those who listened. We then we talk about the virtual parking lot, and this is a place to let everybody know that we're going to go into a virtual parking lot. And if you have questions and you're new to recovery or recovery Dharma, please, hang around because there's a lot of experience in the room. There's a lot of people that can answer your question, and we want to answer those questions. You may also want to extend your shares. Our Wednesday meeting, Monday and Wednesday, we just have we do the breakouts. We have been doing the breakouts. Now on Wednesday we haven't, and we just let the meeting extend into the share period, continue on into the 15 or 20 minutes into the virtual parking lot, so that everybody has an opportunity to share. And a lot of people hang around some of the older ones hang around, and we just keep sharing all the way through, and it's really lovely. We get a lot of people who can share on those days. Again, the meeting each meeting is different, and you can do the meetings can be done however your group feels like you want to do it. This anonymity and confidentiality clause is very important. Never skip this. This is an important part. Everything that was said here and who was here needs to remain confidential, and that's important. Continuing your practice. Again, we state this here so that I'm saying to continue. This is the point at which I normally drop my contact information here into the chat window over here and say, if you haven't put your contact information into the chat window yet, please do so, and please reach out to each other. What makes the Monday, Wednesday, Friday 7 a.m. group such a big family is the fact that it's been this immense network of communication during the week on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays, when they reach out to each other and talk to each other after the meeting, and they've created a real connectedness. So the people in the group, even when it grew after during COVID, and it grew and got larger, they kept connecting. And I encourage people to see if there's somebody in the room that they have resonance with, and to take down their information, reach out to them. There may be a reason they have that resonance with them. There may be some connection that they don't know. They may have just the right story that the other person needs to hear, or the other person may have just the right story that that person needs to hear. And I find it very serendipitous that I, early on in my practice with Recovery Dharma, I would get a call from somebody or a text from somebody and say, hey, can we talk? And I talk, and they would have the balm that I just needed at that moment. Their question or their story was exactly what I needed to hear, just as much as they needed to say it. And it's powerful, because I think listening is just as important as sharing. Because sometimes somebody else says exactly what's on your heart a better way than you say it yourself or can say it. That's particularly true for me. I'm terrible at this ad-lib stuff. And so many of the people in the room are articulate to such a great extent that I find they voiced my feelings in a better way, in a more meaningful way than I could have said it myself. Now, as we go now to the announcements, this is where this section over here, if there's any other announcements you know about, and you also ask, but the announcements during the meeting, before the closing bell, are really announcements only about RD and RDO. So are there any Recovery Dharma or Recovery Dharma online announcements? Any other announcements, let's leave for the virtual parking lot, because this is all about RD. We're not here promoting Tara Brach videos or other stuff from other groups and everything else. That can all be done in a virtual parking lot when it's a much more open discussion. Now, at this point here, we then move to the actual dedication of merit, which I think it's important for us to resettle ourselves, to have everybody take a deep breath. We then ask who would like to read us. It's a beautiful passage here. It closes our meeting out with, and we close out again with another bell. At that point, we're now in the virtual parking lot. Now, the original purpose of the virtual parking lot was for people to make connections, to continue sharing information, gather information. They shared in the chat window. You may want to remind people that these three little buttons down here are where they can actually click on them, and actually, when you have a full chat in here, they can actually just save chat. There's no chat in here, but the save chat button is lit up when there's something put in here, and they can then save the chat. So if I put in here, I'll also drop in here sometimes a document that has sort of some of the main links. I'll also drop in here my contact information and all that kind of stuff there at times. But now when you click on this, it should say save chat. And when they save chat, it brings up and saves that. You can click on this show in folder, and real quickly, it's nice to find it because it puts it in a special place. I found that by clicking on that save folder, I could find it, then move it to where I wanted to put it on my desktop or whatever, so I could find it later. You're only saving the chat that you have since the time you came in. So if you came in late, you missed some of the early chat. If you close out and come back in, there's no chat there. So if you want to save the contacts or links, you need to do that before you leave the meeting. And it saves everything from the time you entered until the time you save the chat. If you're on an iOS device, they need to do screen prints. Just do, print screen, print screen, print screen, and they can scroll up and down and find the person they want to get the information from. Also, if there's somebody in here what I like about having the template over here is I can take and put some links or some like this here, just copy and paste it over here into either next to their name or next to down here at the bottom for people that I feel like I need to reach out to. And I try to identify at least one person each week that I really want to reach out to during the week coming. And by doing that, Chris from Indiana recommended she tries to find one person a day that she just makes a call, a chat, texts about. They may call her back, they may text back, may not, but she's reached out. And that has built a huge community. And that was a great practice. And I took that and thanked Chris for that recommendation. It was a great idea to do that. And I've done that in the past. The parking lot can become just a big conversation pool. There's nothing wrong with that, but at some point you need to leave, and you can't just leave the room open, because if the room's left open, the other group, the host, if you pass the host to somebody else and they leave without ending the meeting can stay open and lock out the next group. So what we've decided as a Sangha is that the host needs to either pass the host on to another host that's an authorized host, facilitator, or either close the meeting themselves and tell everybody, if you want to come back in, you're welcome to come back into the room, come back, log back in, and continue chatting all you want to until the next meeting comes up. But that way the next host can come back in and claim host and take over the meeting. So in our meetings, we basically say, for the next 15 minutes, we're going to keep the virtual parking lot open. Please share information, use this opportunity. And this reading over here from Letty basically does a really nice job of sort of setting the stage of what the purpose here is and to sort of focus on that. And at the time when you need to leave, you just say, hey, okay, everybody, I'm going to close the meeting out. And if you'd like to and you want to continue the conversation, just log right back in and you'll be able to share until the next meeting starts. And some people do that. And because when you click on the end meeting button over here, it comes up with an option to either leave the meeting or to end the meeting for all. If you leave the meeting, you need to have assigned somebody else as host, otherwise nobody can close the meeting. And that's the problem. And that's why and it locks up every other meeting and we have to go through this whole rigmarole with Zoom to try to get the meeting closed down, and it's a nightmare. So please, end the meeting for all when you leave, so that it ends, and let everybody come back in if they want to, without it being set up as a host, as a claim. Host hadn't been claimed yet. So at that point there, you would end in the meeting. Now, I believe that's covered everything about hosting that I know. If not, please feel free to reach out to the facilitator circle or one of the facilitators and ask. If they don't know the answer to, they definitely have a huge group of people with a lot of experience that they can reach out to and find an answer for you. I want to thank you for your willingness to participate and serve here with RDO. This last year that I've been facilitating the 3 meetings on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, has been a joy. It's been truly a practice. I know I've got to get up on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning and do my practice, which is being with you. And I've found that time together is really a family. It's really become home. So I hope you can enjoy the same experience I've had by being a host. And thank you again for your service and willingness to participate. And gosh,